We're going to talk about interest. And interest is, instead of subtracting or adding, we're going to be multiplying here. Now, the idea of interest is paying rent on money you've borrowed. So it's like paying rent on an apartment. Okay, the apartment's built. We don't need to spend money on building it. But because you're taking it up, you might have to pay rent on that. You're using it, the person who owns it or whoever owns it, they can't use it. So you're going to have to pay rent. And it's the same thing in a way with money. When you borrow money, well, I mean, since you have it, somebody else can't use it. The person who you borrowed from can't use it. So you're going to pay interest or rent on that money. And we're going to explore how do you calculate this. Now, what you're usually given is an interest rate, and the amount of interest is going to be based upon the rate and also how much you borrowed. So the annual interest, and we're going to look at interest rates. This is sort of the rent on money you pay per year. So we'll multiply by number of years to get the total interest. The annual interest, that's what we need to calculate. And the formula we're going to use, and it's similar to the others. Now, there's something called the principal. The principal is the amount that you've actually borrowed. Then we have the interest rate. And again, this is an annual rate. And once again, our familiar 100. So suppose you have the following. Now, I do want to mention one thing. This is what we call simple interest. And there's also versions called compound interest, where you're going to be paying interest multiple times throughout, say, a year. And you actually pay part of the interest rate multiple times through the year. Not the whole rate multiple times, but part of it multiple times. And then you'll pay interest on top of the interest you haven't paid back yet. That's a totally different thing. This is what's called simple interest. So suppose we have the following. Now, again, this is going to be an annual interest rate. So it's charged per year, the annual interest. So what is the total interest? So the annual interest is what we're trying to find. I'm just going to call this, say, I. Now, the principal is how much we borrow. So in this case, it'll be $10,000. The rate is 3%. We're going to remember that this was for 7 years. Put that off to the side. So what this will do, it'll find the annual interest. Well, annual means 1 year. So this will give us the amount of interest paid in 1 year. And then we'll multiply that by 7 to get the total amount of interest for 7 years. Once again, cross multiply. Divide by 100. And we get I is equal to $300. So what this is, it's the annual interest, how much interest we're going to pay per year. So to get the total interest, annual interest times years. or $300 times 7, and that's going to come out to $2,100. So at the end of 7 years, you're going to need to pay back the $10,000 you borrowed. In addition, you have to pay back $2,100 just for the privilege of borrowing that money. It's the rent you pay on using it. So if you want to know the total that you pay back, total you pay back is the $10,000 plus the interest. That's going to come out to $12,100. So that's something you want to keep in mind. When you borrow money, you're not just going to pay back what you've borrowed, you're going to pay, in addition, the interest, the rent on that money for borrowing it. So now this is what we were looking for, but ultimately this will be a significant number as well. So that's it. Any questions? Let me know.